collaborating with Lancaster County to provide this conference without a registration fee for our grantees, our community providers, and our juvenile justice stakeholders statewide. This is possible in part with the support of our conference sponsors. Thank you to our platinum and gold sponsors, the Nebraska Crime Commission, North Point Recovery, Omni Inventive Care, Best Education Solution Team, Amplifund, and Nebraska Westland. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank the Conference Planning Committee for all of their work in preparing for this conference. I'd like to recognize and thank specifically Jenny Ryan, Leslie Ahrens, and Aaron Wasserberger for all of their work preparing for this conference. This conference would not be possible without them. We are excited to have over 400 individuals registered for this conference in the community planning workshop. We hope this conference provides you with a better understanding of community-based alternatives, diversion opportunities, and heightened sense of racial justice. Over the next 2 days, you'll get to hear from a few keynote speakers and choose from a variety of different workshops to attend. The workshops will be presented on this floor and the floor below us. Friday, we will have a racial and ethnic disparities in community planning workshop with an opportunity for you to meet with your community team. At this time, I'd like to welcome the newly appointed Executive Director of the Nebraska Crime Commission, Brian Tupa.
Good morning, everybody. My remarks will be brief. As you might expect, being brand new to the position, I'm in my third day. I just got my email and my phone yesterday, so I'm on my way. But seriously, good morning to everybody, and I do appreciate the opportunity to welcome the Nebraska Community Agency and Justice Conference. I'd like to thank Administrator Ryan and her staff in the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention for joining us at our conference. I think that's extraordinary. So I do believe her presence demonstrates the commitment our federal partners place on developing programs and identifying the funding to support our efforts at the state and local level as targets our youth at risk programs or initiatives. And so I want to thank all conference partners, all the participants that are here today. The staff and the presenters have some very good information. It's meaningful, I think it will be insightful, and should assist all of you with your programming initiatives. So I want to reinforce the Crime Commission, our commitment to providing grant resources to support your initiatives with a focus on serving at-risk youth and diverting youth from the juvenile justice system. So just a brief recap of fiscal year 2023. Crime Commission is awarded more than $7.1 billion for juvenile grant activities. Those grants impacted over 80 counties, more than 200 programs, and 6,000 youth that were beneficiaries of those dollars. So I want to thank all of you for your commitment and your dedication to what you do, because it is essential to maintaining the health and safety of our communities. So I interviewed this role as the Executive Director for the Nebraska Commission on Law Enforcement and Criminal Justice. I've been engaged in state government for over 40 years and had several roles, leadership roles within state government, primarily public safety. But I do bring that experience to the table, and I do look forward to working with all the partners. I've been a previous member of the Crime Commission several years ago. I served on the Key Standards Advisory Council. I'm familiar with a lot of the grant activities that do occur within the Commission and how those resources impact state and local government and our private partners. So I do look forward to meeting with you and having the opportunity to work on these issues. I want to wish you a very successful conference.
evaluation procurement Bennett hours. For CLEs, attorneys must fill out the Google form submitting your name and your bar number. Attendance will be submitted based on the session scan into the conference app. Attendance will only be submitted for attorneys that fill out both the Google form and or scanned into attendance. So make sure you do both. And if you have any questions on any of that process, just stop by the registration table and they'll be able to help you. We will be tracking who's in attendance in each session via QR code. So make sure when you go into the room, you scan the QR code. Now to do that, you're going to have to download the Huda app. The Huda app, if you have your phones available and you haven't downloaded it yet, it's WHOVA. Once you get the app downloaded, just search for the Nebraska Community Aid Juvenile Justice Conference, and you should be able to get everything going that way. With this app, you can access materials, provide guest speakers, ask questions, and connect with other attendees. For those of you that aren't comfortable doing that, there'll also be people who are in rooms, hosts in each room that will be able to stand in the session, so don't worry. Okay. Wi-Fi can be found at any of the three graduate guests, graduate lobby, or graduate meeting space. Pick the one that likes and probably the one that you like, and probably the one that works best for you. The password is any valid email. So whatever your email is, you put it in and that should be in there. Okay, now for the fun stuff. Lunch. Lunch will be served in this room today and tomorrow. We have speakers for both sessions here in lunch, both days. Make sure you find your way back here right away, find a new friend, and get ready for amazing food and great speakers. Afternoon snacks will be available in the hallways, both upstairs and downstairs. The networking session tonight will be immediately following the breakout sessions right back in this room. There are several prizes to be gotten, more food, drinks, and our own Steve Solario from El Centro de las Americas will be DJing the event for us. You won't want to miss it. And while we want to see everyone smiling face here tonight, just make sure you're not partying too hard because tomorrow we also want to see your smiling faces back up here for trauma-informed yoga starting at 7:30 in the morning. Okay? Make sure you stop downstairs. Make sure you stop downstairs sometime today and visit the vendors. All your vendor friends are waiting there for you. And finally, and most importantly, back to what Senator Kaufman said, this conference truly would not be possible without the support from the Nebraska Crime Commission and the Lancaster County Board of Commissioners. And today we have Lancaster County Board of Commissioners Chair, Commissioner Kristen Yoka, here to welcome you to our great community. Please help me welcome Commissioner Yoka.
Good morning and welcome to Lancaster County. I am Kristen Yoka, Chair of the Lancaster County Board of Commissioners, and on behalf of the board, I want to welcome you to Lancaster County and to the city of Lincoln. Many of you who are participating today are from Lincoln and Lancaster County, and I hope that you are proud not only of your community, or our community, but of the work that you do and the contributions that you have brought to this 2023 Community Aid and Juvenile Justice Conference. And don't be afraid to share with your peers from out of town. Share your favorite restaurants, share your favorite tips about the work that you do. Share your successes. Well, I do want you to enjoy Lincoln and one of my favorite areas of the city, not only because I represent this area, but it really is my favorite part of town, is downtown and Haymarket area. I recognize the work you do is the reason that you come together here. 400 plus. That's pretty impressive. Thank you for your commitment to that work, the work that is both challenging and rewarding. I recently read this quote that I see going around on social media. Every young person is just one caring adult away from success. And while I think there is truth to that, and many of you are the caring adults who provide stability, structure, and takes care of basic needs for many young people, I wish it was that simple. Challenges in this world and our society are some of the greatest young people have ever faced. My wish for you in this conference is to get renewed energy in knowing that your work matters. That we, and when I say we, I mean local government, want to be partners in solutions. I want you to laugh, trade stories, trade tips and techniques with your peers, learn something new, have something that you already knew confirmed, share what you know, and nurture your strength and commitment to the young people and the families here in Nebraska. And again, I do want to thank you for your commitment. And it's now my pleasure to introduce Liz Ryan, OJJP Administrator.
Good morning. I'm Liz Ryan, the Administrator for the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. We're a federal agency created nearly 50 years ago under the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Act. So I want to thank Lancaster County and the Nebraska Crime Commission for inviting me to kick off the 2023 Nebraska Community Aid and Juvenile Justice Conference. It's really an honor to be here with all of you. ODAP is a component of the Justice Department's Office of Justice Programs, and we provide national leadership and resources, training and technical assistance, and research support to states, territories, tribes, and communities to prevent delinquency and improve the juvenile justice system. We're committed to broadening opportunities for our nation's youth, enhancing their welfare, and equipping them for life. We're the only federal agency focused solely on young people who are involved in or at risk of being in the juvenile justice system. 3 priorities guide our work. First, treating children as children. Second, serving youth at home with their families and communities. And third, opening up opportunities for young people involved in the justice system. We're also driven by 2 overarching principles: a commitment to racial equity and fairness, and a promise to partner with youth and families who are impacted by the juvenile justice system. So today I'd like to touch on a couple of areas where our missions overlap. First is a belief in the power of community-based programs, and second is a commitment to promoting racial equity and fairness in the juvenile justice system. ODAP believes that the best place to serve youth in the justice system is in their communities where they call home. Our efforts to replace incarceration with community-based alternatives are grounded in decades of research. ODAP supports community-based programs that emphasize therapeutic or educational approaches that hold young people accountable for their past actions while keeping them in school and at work and connected to their families. Nebraska's community-based aid, CBA, funded by the state and administered by the Nebraska Crime Commission, underscores the state's very strong commitment to community-based reform efforts. Some examples of this excellent work are, in fiscal year 2021 alone, CBA funded nearly 200 programs across 73 counties and 1 tribe, awarding in excess of $6.5 million. During that same fiscal year, more than 8,000 Nebraska youth were referred to 21 categories of programming within the juvenile case management system. These programs include diversion, mental health, family support, mediation, mentoring, crisis response, and many others. More than $5.7 million has already been appropriated for CBA for use in fiscal years 24 and 25. In addition to CBA, $564,000 has been appropriated for Nebraska Juvenile Services grants alone in 2025. Community-based services have been shown to positively impact young people's behavior and reduce reoffending. The Nebraska Crime Commission has demonstrated their commitment to these alternatives by dedicating CBA funds for pre-adjudication prevention and diversion services that keep youth in communities and out of the criminal justice system. And we commend you for this work. I'd also like to touch on other areas where our missions overlap: racial equity and fairness. Research shows that young people of color are disproportionately represented in the juvenile justice system. Although overall youth involvement in the juvenile justice system has increased nationally, disparities drastic, and the disparity in arrest rates between black and white youth has only increased in recent years. In 2020, black youth were 2.3 times more likely to be arrested than white. Youth of color are also more likely than their white peers to commit similar offenses to be prosecuted in adult criminal court and placed in adult jails and prisons. Young people in adult jails and prisons are more likely than their peers in juvenile facilities to be held in solitary confinement, and they are at higher risk for physical and sexual abuse. Youth who are charged as adults are 34% more likely to be rearrested than those who are processed in the juvenile justice system. Our children deserve better. There are many reasons why racial and ethnic disparities exist in the juvenile justice system, and those reasons are complex. Such disparities also exist in other systems that serve young people, child welfare system, foster care, educational systems. But as professionals in youth justice, all of us here, we're obligated to challenge and dismantle those disparities. OJJP is leading efforts to reduce the overrepresentation of young people of color in the nation's justice system. Funding through OJJP's Title II Formula Grants program created by the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Act, helps states to address juvenile delinquency and supports improvements in the juvenile justice system. Formula grant funding also helps states to address the core requirements that are in the Juvenile Justice Act, including efforts to reduce racial and ethnic disparities through youth employment contract. States that comply with the requirement of the Act are eligible to receive Title II funding. However, states that don't participate in the Act apply for funding and do not participate in states program. This program provides funding to local, public, or private agencies to carry out activities that support compliance with the requirements of the Act. If you did not participate in the states program, OJJP awarded resources to Lancaster and Douglas counties to address racial and ethnic disparities for both youth and adults in the system. I would be remiss if I did not mention the Commission's work with Nebraska's tribal community. They work closely with their Native American partners to re-engage Nebraska tribal entities as grant recipients. So, for example, the Winnebago tribe now participates in the CDA program, and they were able to receive much needed funding. The Commission is also working to elevate tribal voices by enhancing tribal representation on Nebraska State Advisory Group and Racial and Ethnic Disparities committees. On the final day of this conference, OJJP's Center for Coordinated Assistance to States, that's a community Nancy, if you know who they are, they will host strategic planning sessions to explore the data on racial and ethnic disparities, address local challenges, and develop community-specific approaches that honor the diversity of communities throughout our state. During the planning sessions, leaders will discuss treatment options for youth that are creative, equitable, and reflect the needs of the diverse regions throughout the state. Our children need a juvenile justice system that is truly just. It's up to all of us here to create one for them. This is a monumental task and will require long-term commitment, funding, and action. It demands vision, leadership, and people who are willing to take their bold moves and disrupt the status quo, which I know everyone here is all about. What the Nebraska Crime Commission and its partners are doing to reduce disparities and improve outcomes for youth is vital to the future of all of our communities. I look forward to continuing our work together to create a juvenile justice system that is responsive to the needs of youth and their families. And I look forward to the delightful conference today. Thank you all so much for being here.
Good morning, everyone. This is overwhelming to see about 400 people here, so thank you again for everybody being here. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Elaine Menzel, and I am the chair of the Nebraska Coalition of Juvenile Justice. That is the state advisory group for Title II world. So anyway, with that, I get the distinct honor of introducing our keynote speaker, Christian Bijoux. I've had the opportunity to hear him speak at two other sessions, and I think he'll share with me that my opinion that he is a fantastic speaker. He, of course, the session I'm talking about is the one that I'm supposed to introduce you to later, so I hadn't intended to know, but excuse me for not having this session's information available. But he has, in your session, it says that he would be obtaining his doctorate degree title, and I believe that you've done so by this time, because that was published in May for the information. So with that, I won't further make a fool of myself, but allow you to the Christian, or excuse me, Dr. Bijoux. Thank you.
Good morning. All right, I'm historically bad with microphones, so at some point, I'm going to try to speak not using it and speak louder. And I'm also historically bad at staying on podiums, so this is not going to flow like this for me. I will be down here with you, but I feel more comfortable. My name is Christian Bijoux. Please feel free to call me Chris or Christian. The honorifics don't really work well for me, so I'm fine with Chris and Christian. And I have really the privilege and the honor of embracing and enjoying this space with you all this morning to talk about this really important issue that I know it's impactful and critical for us all, which is the continued journey for racial justice. And for those who, I need to get off this stage. I don't like that hierarchy. It doesn't work well, especially when we're talking about race. For those who do know me, know that I like to engage with my audience. I like to feel where we are, and so I don't come to you with PowerPoints, and I don't come to you with data points this morning. This is not designed to be that kind of keynote. I really come engaged to, I really come prepared to engage your heart and to help us see this issue from a different perspective, a different approach, a different lens. And I think if we can do that and keep that issue front and center for the remainder of the time of this conference, it really will ground and orient into what you will hear from the amazing speakers. And so I'm not going to bore you with any introductions, and this is not about me, this is about you, this is about us, this is about the work that we have been tasked to do. And so I really want to go ahead and get that started. And before I do, it's really critical that I share a few things with you all. One, I am incredibly blunt when I'm talking about race and racism, right? Very direct. And so I need you to understand that as I will share some things with you, because this is my life. And so when I am talking about something that's very related to my life, I have to be as open, as vulnerable, as transparent as I can be. And so I do not sanitize this conversation for anyone. This conversation is also not easy. It is not designed to be easy. It never was and it never will be easy. Because this conversation is layered with centuries of blood, centuries of trauma, centuries of oppression, centuries of marginalization. And so therefore, as we navigate this conversation, some of you may feel incredibly uncomfortable. And if you are, great, I'm doing my job. And it's also okay to be uncomfortable. And it also calls upon us to be comfortable being uncomfortable having this conversation. I have dedicated my entire life to addressing racism, and I am always uncomfortable talking about it. And so if I feel uncomfortable, I can imagine the discomfort that some of you feel. And thirdly, I don't like to just be the primary voice. So there's this sort of component where I work on a voluntold basis, right? Where I'll ask you some things, and if no one volunteers, then I shift to use my powers as a keynote speaker for a voluntold process. And the way the voluntold process is, if you look at me, you try to look away, you twitch a little, that's consent that you have something to share, all right? So thank you for that. And For those who do know me, know that I am also a lover of spoken word and poetry, and that I do not start any session, whether I am teaching a class, giving a lecture, a keynote, a presentation of any kind, without opening with a spoken word. And so I have identified a spoken word that I believe can really help capture the moment and the essence and the energy of this conference for us all. And so I share it with you all and hope that you too find energy, passion, excitement, comfort, and just recollection and remembrance in those words. And so I will share it and we will get started.
We forgot we were worshiping beings. We forgot you, Black Jesus. We forgot the King of Kings. We forgot crowns do nothing for kings, but put a weight on their heads and a target on their backs. We forgot they tax our heads and put weight on our backs. We forgot Sodom and Gomorrah were leveled by brimstone and divine judgment, but Mississippi is still standing. We forgot burning cities. We forgot cities are still burning. We forgot colors are seasonal and that this skin will fade too. I forgot my skin. Or perhaps I just ran out of fucks to give. We forgot that some kids' utopias is a roof that won't whisper the night to the sleeping bodies below. We forgot bodies sleep below. We forgot bodies float. Bodies hang. We forgot barbecue postcards, strange fruit, and hooded men. I forgot my rage and the pulse that bleeds underneath my tongue. I forgot my tongue and how it used to fit so perfectly in my purse next to my motherly beauties. I forgot my purse and my high-heeled stilts. I forgot balancing is no longer an act when you're hiding behind imported hair and downloaded smile and voice straight to jump through hoops for flames for your snaps and applause. You don't get it. Shoot, you already forgot you woke up this morning. You forgot to close the box when you were scoring that pot, that plate, that spoon on your left butt cheek or whatever, but you remember how that song goes, right? You remember how it went? You remember you wanted your garden chai tea latte with 3 pumps, skim milk, light water, milk foam, and served at 120 degrees. You remember how spiritual of an experience that was? I forgot where I wrote this. I forgot if I was just ranting, or if I forgot to close the faucet when I was throwing that pot, that plate, that spoon on my tongue, or whatever. But I remember how this goes. I remember how spiritual an experience this is. I forgot my heart was a burning city. Shoot, you already forgot. I forgot my tongue, remember? We forgot that some kids walk past their utopias every morning. Suburban bricks standing tall in proclamation of what statistics saying they will never truly attain. We forgot that some kids try so hard to forget tomorrow is even coming. We forgot that there were kids smiling in barbecue postcards next to strange fruit and hooded men. Or perhaps we never had any fucks. You know, sometimes I forget how hard it is to remember.
You know, this one is always a painful one for me to share because it calls upon us to remember things that we tried to bury so deep beneath the earth. Things that we tried to forget. Things that we try so hard not to remember, and so we pretend as if they never happened or don't exist. And this quest for racial justice is just that. And so when Royce talks about kids smiling, in barbecue postcards next to strange fruit and hooded always pains my heart. Because I know the images that it calls upon my mind and body to remember. And so I can imagine what it calls upon your mind and body to remember. You see, because in this country, we have tried to bury the conversations around race and racism so deep that we almost say to ourselves, well, if we stop talking about it, then maybe the problem will go away, right? If we stop talking about race, maybe the problem will go away. Surely we live in a post-racial society. It's not about race anymore. And so I ask, based on my own experience as a young black man navigating this world, this earth, this soil, when has it not been about race for me? Because the day I stop forgetting that I am a young black man in this country, in this earth, walking this soil, I can die. And I don't say that superficially, I can die. And so when we remember that this journey is part of the inherited task that we all have, we have to do better. But we have to see it differently first. You see, what we also try to bury is the understanding, I'm going to contextualize this from the black experience. Not only is the black experience one of the most, the one that's filled with the most hatred, dehumanization, and devaluation for human life. You can also look at the Native American experience, the genocide that took place. You can look at the border control that has tried to regulate and control and contain Latino Americans from coming into this country. But let me contextualize this from the black experience for a moment, and help you all understand why it is so difficult to talk about race in this society. You see, from 1619 to 1865, and I'm going to be academically kind, we seem to start the black experience in this country from the summer of 1619, when the first 20 blacks descended upon Jamestown, Virginia. That is historically inaccurate. Black folks were here long before 1619, but I will not get into an academic or historical discussion about that here, I promise. But let's say I am being historically kind. And we start off from 1619 to 1865. That represents the 246 years of chattel slavery in this country. When black people had less rights than animals, they were enslaved, enchained, bought and sold. That equates to about 61% of the black experience in America. 61%. And then from 1865 to 1965, we have this 100-year period of legal segregation and separation. What most of you here probably refer to as the Jim Crow era, right? I'll test your history 101 in a moment. That 100-year period amounted to just about 25% of the black experience in America. 1619 to 1965, you're looking at 85% of the black experience in this country has been spent in bondage, as property, or without equal rights and representation. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment from 1865 to 1965 were virtually nullified. And so this idea of this journey for continued racial equity, in a way, we're really talking about this concept since 1965. We have tried to bury the 246 years of chattel slavery by saying, well, it's so long ago, it doesn't matter. But the remnants of slavery are still present in this society. And so I'm always fascinated and amazed by how people tell me that we live in a post-racial society and that race doesn't matter, and I continue to see the inequitable racial outcomes in every system. Healthcare, education, legal systems, housing, employment systems, it doesn't matter. The outcomes, the data tells the story. And so if we live in this post-racial society, why are the outcomes just so much worse for those who are black and brown or non-white? It's okay to have this conversation and feel as if we are all good people and we make the best decisions. But it's one thing to say that to ourselves, it's another to convince and deceive ourselves that we live in this post-racial society where we see racism happening all around us, but then we can't say anyone's racist. And so as Professor Silva says, we are living in a world of racism without any racists. Our society, whether you want to believe it or not, is fueled with racial tension. And the work that we have been called upon to do is to try to address that. But you can't address if you don't see, and see differently. If you don't see it through the perspective and through the minds and through the eyes of those who are closest to the pain. Those who live this reality every single day. So how is it as a country that we have been having these conversations, and in black and brown communities, we have always had this conversation, but it took the perfect storm scenario of summer of 2020 for us to prioritize and elevate this conversation. And so what happened? In May of 2020, and I use my words very intentionally, these are my words and mine alone, we were all, for those who were able to watch, witnessed a modern-day lynching. The modern-day lynching of George Floyd. I do not call it a murder. That is not what it was for me. I do not call it an incident, as I have often heard it described as. It was so much more. It was a modern-day lynching before our eyes. And so the world got an opportunity to notice what people of color have been saying this entire time, that we were not crazy, that we were not making this up, that is something is very wrong with the state of our society. The society that refuses to see us, to acknowledge us, to humanize us. And so we watched this modern-day lynching take place in front of our eyes. We watched the videos of Ahmaud Arbery, the loss of life of Breonna Taylor, and the many others that came before. And so the viral pandemic of COVID gave us an opportunity for the world to shut down, to pay attention, and to see differently. And you see, there was something to what everyone was saying. And so we had to pay attention. And so we said, well, maybe there is something to this racism issue. Maybe. And so in the summer of 2020, organizations all across the country started to prioritize and take their symbolic and superficial knees with people and saying, I stand with you. Billions of dollars were donated all across the country. When I was an academic, I had to follow the numbers to see what the outcomes were based on those billions of dollars. And you know what we noticed? The same racial inequities and outcomes, in spite of the billions of dollars donated. And so in 2020, everyone was elevating their voice. Everyone was prioritizing this conversation. By the summer of 2021, most people were elevating their voice. Most people were prioritizing this conversation. By the summer of 2022, some people were elevating their voices. Some people were prioritizing this conversation. And by the summer of 2023, some folks are saying, why are we still talking about race? It's gotten its attention, after all. We solved the problem. But what problem have we solved? And so when we think about what we are tasked to do, not just to jump to the solutions, but to understand what life is like for those who navigate this world as a person of color. So imagine the energy, the strength, the commitment that it must take for them to wake up in the morning and have to endure that kind of pain again. And then you go through the workday, You hear the subtle comments. You see the ways in which you're kept at bay. And you lay your head in bed at night, and you have nightmares about those experiences. And then you have to wake up the next day and do it all over again. But then you remember, this is not just your pain. This is the pain for those who have kids, that your kids are going through, that your parents went through, that your grandparents and your great-grandparents, and you realize, when have we ever had an opportunity to truly live in this society? We're all in a state of survival. Our minds, our bodies has never been at ease. We are all trying to survive. And so, we have to do something, and we have to do something differently. But what do? Pretending as if the problem doesn't exist doesn't make the problem go away. Directly confronting the problem will require renewed commitment. Right? In some parts of the country, you can't even mention the words diversity, equity, and inclusion. Your job is not about to get easier. It is about to get infinitely harder. How will you show up? What will you do? You see, it's one thing to take a superficial knee. It's another thing to be an ally. But dare I say, I don't need anyone to take a knee with me. I need you to stand up, stand with, stand by, and stand for us. I need you to be a co-conspirator with us. To use the designated powers and privileges that you have in your roles as people, as leaders, to do something differently, to see it differently. Shift your internal being, your internal core. And when you do, you don't just do because you have a friend that you think, hey, I'm standing up for them. You're doing it because it's the right thing to do. Just imagine what you would do if your ancestors were oppressed for 246 years, were without equal rights and representation for another 100 years, continue to be denied access and opportunity in every facet of life, every single day. How would you show up? If these were members of your direct family, how would you show up? What would you do? Surely we can't continue to engage these passive and safe solutions that we have been engaging, because racism is not an ordinary problem. It is a wicked problem. And wicked problems require wicked solutions. What are your wicked solutions? You see, if we get uncomfortable just talking about and naming race and racism, how in the world can we engage true solutions that are designed to confront it? I promise you, whatever discomfort you experience talking about race doesn't equate to the discomfort that I feel every single day living in this body. Every single day. I have to prepare myself every single day. And I don't often share this, but I started sharing this a couple of years ago because this isn't even about me. This isn't even about y'all. I have a 3-year-old son at home. Just turned 3 this past Saturday. And I am scared to death for him. Scared to absolute death for him. And for those who have kids, you understand the fear as a parent of being worried. Now imagine worrying about if they're coming home just because someone doesn't like the color of their skin, the way they look, the way they walk, the way they dress, the way they talk, the way they behave. And we do things consistently and chronically to remind them of that reality. This is about them. This isn't their fight yet. And so we have a responsibility to do everything that we possibly can to solve this issue. And giving ourselves some grace and patience. It took almost 400 years to get here. Y'all ain't gonna fix this overnight. Good luck. You're just not. We're not. What we are called upon to do, we will not experience in our lifetimes, any of us here. But we still have to do. We still have to show up. We still have to be present, every single one of us. And so I'm going to speak to folks directly for a moment, and I have to be mindful of my time. For those who are black in this room, the body doesn't forget. The mind doesn't forget. The soul doesn't forget. This lives within us. The trauma is real. But the overcoming of that trauma is also real too, and we can't live in that state forever. What I want for us and from us is not to run away from that pain, but to embrace that pain. To acknowledge that rage and embrace that rage and to use it constructively. Not just to survive, but to find ways of living. To those that are white in this room, I understand talking about race all the time can feel uncomfortable. And what I have heard across the country for some folks who say, it's not me. I have nothing to do with this. No one here is one of the founding fathers, and even that is grounded in patriarchy and grounded in racism. It's uncomfortable hearing about these things known as white privilege. The privilege you have because of the color of your skin. I understand that it can be uncomfortable to listen to every single day. And the reason why I can understand that, honestly, is because I maintain that every black person specifically, and every person of color generally, knows what it's like to be white in this country. Understand what I am saying. Our survival has been predicated on understanding what makes white people happy, what makes white people mad, what makes white people sad, what makes them angry, what makes them laugh, what makes them cry. This is just a matter of historical fact. Our survival was predicated upon that, and it still is today. The reverse has never been true. Your survival has never been predicated on understanding what makes us happy, what makes us mad, what makes us laugh, what makes us cry. I know you didn't ask for this privilege, but you have it. And so what are you going to do with it? It's easy because you can step away from the conversation. You can step back. So you know what? I don't want to talk about this today. There are other issues we need to prioritize. Surely there are a host of issues, but dare I say, if we can figure out racial justice, we'll figure the other stuff out too. This is the virus that we are all affected in. How do you use your power, your voice, and your privilege to stand up, stand with, stand by, and stand for those who are oppressed, who are marginalized? What do you do? The discomfort of you entering the conversation doesn't equate to the discomfort of our daily experience. To those who are around in this space, sometimes having this conversation, you can feel otherized. Because we often approach this conversation as sort of black-white dynamic, it's binary. And if you're neither black and you're neither white, where do you fit into this conversation? But our histories are connected. You see, because here's something that is incredibly powerful about this. Racial justice is justice for all. Make no mistake about this. And so I'll give you a little history lesson. If there are any historians in the room, I think they can validate the historical accuracy of this. The first 13 slave rebellions in this country, you realize, are not just the black slaves. They're black slaves, Native Indians, and poor whites. All of them were unsuccessful. But they realized, absent of a few things, right? Because the Native Indians, we know about their history, The poor whites, many of them indentured servants, but we know about indentured servitude is that they have the opportunity to just leave, or it lasted for a period of time. That their realities were connected. They were intertwined. If one group failed, they all failed. Until the emergence of this thing we call race. And so if we understand that it was during the Reconstruction period of 1865 to 1877 that even poor whites, for the very first time, had access to formal education and health care because of the ending of slavery, you understand that our realities are connected in more ways than we realize, in more ways than we acknowledge. Racial justice is justice for all. But there remains a very consistent state of anti-blackness in this country that seems to dominate. And if we don't do something differently, there'll be another version of me, 50 to 100 years from now, speaking at a conference like this with other versions of you talking about how we need to prioritize racial equity and racial justice. This isn't going to be easy. It's going to be hard. You are going to be attacked. You are going to be ridiculed. You are going to be suppressed. In many instances, you may even be silenced. But think about what our ancestors went through. And so if I am reminded of that, and I remember that, however hard and painful it is to remember, I know I can do this. I know we can do this. You are all here. You're all present in this space. And I don't imagine this was mandatory for you to attend. You're here because you want to be. And because you're here because you want to be, you have to do things differently. We have to do things differently. I can't do this alone. We can't do this alone. Every single one of us has to be united in this effort. Because if we don't remember that, then I'm afraid of what comes next. I truly am. But I'm alive, and so I'm vertical, and I think we'll be okay. If we can continue to approach this work with a certain level of commitment and dedication and passion and remembrance and recollection. We inherited this work. Our only responsibility is to do everything that we possibly can with the time that we have. What are you going to do with the time that you have? How are you going to show up? Avoiding the conversation doesn't fix the problem. Stepping back from the conversation doesn't fix the problem. How will you show up? How will you be present? When we're in the room and when we're not. The quest for racial justice is never ending. We're never going to solve this problem. I have a radical theory on how to approach and solve racism in this world. A really radical theory. Blow the world up, start all over again. It's really the only real solution. That's not going to work. And so we have to do things differently. If the only solution doesn't work, at least the realist and truest solution doesn't work, there are other things we have to do. Seeing it differently, humanizing the conversations, embracing the conversations, having the discussion no matter how hard and challenging it is. Because it is supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be challenging. And I think we'll be okay. I honestly, truly want to naively believe we will be okay if we remember that others before us fought this battle. Many of them died. Many of them continue to die. To give me and to give us this opportunity. They are sacrificing their lives for us. And so, What are you willing to sacrifice so their sacrifice is not in vain? What risk are you willing to take? Because if you can't even make the risk or take the risk of speaking up or speaking out, I just need you to kindly step aside. I'll still respect you. I'll still appreciate you. I'm going to check the time real shortly. But I have to be really, really clear. If this is not a priority for you, and if addressing racial justice is not real for you and to you, I just need you to kindly get out the damn way. And let those who are truly committed to this work, who are truly willing to sacrifice and risk everything, let them do the work. Because we do not have the time and the luxury for more barriers in front of us. If you realize you're not ready, that's fine. When you're ready, when you're truly ready, we'll embrace you. But if you're not, if this is superficial, if this is just another thing for you to do, get out of my way. Because I'm not somebody. And I hope that those who are in this room, in this space, in this moment, I hope people get out of your way so you can continue to do the work that you are doing to address and to confront and to challenge racism every single day, because make no mistake, we are experiencing it every single day. And so as Lois talks about how painful it is to remember, the image that comes to mind when we're talking about strange fruit hanging, and the recollection and the understanding that the strange fruit were us. The strange fruit were people. The strange fruit were my ancestors. And how we continue to be strangers in this country. It is painful to remember that. But I hold on to that memory to continue to fuel this work that I do. I want you to remember that this work is not going to be easy for you. There is a lot riding on all of us. And if we're not willing to give it our all, we're part of the problem. So give it everything you got. Because my son, a 3-year-old son, his life depends on it. Your sons, your daughters, your grandkids, their lives depend on it. And I am not willing to sacrifice another black body so we can prioritize having conversations around race and racism in this country. But that seems to be what it takes to have conversations around race and racism in this country. But I have no more kings and queens that I'm willing to sacrifice. No more. So step up. Let's be better. And I hope in the course of this conference, you learn the skills and the applications that can enhance the work that you do so you can step up and do better. And if we do that, then I can remain in my naive optimism that this world will get better. But it doesn't if we just continue to dismiss. So validate, acknowledge, be present, be bold, risk, and take risk, and understand that maybe some of you in this room might have to get out of the way. Others, you might need you to clear a path. But whatever you do, however you identify it, don't be half-hearted in it. Because watching George Floyd, and for whatever it means to anyone here, ask for his mother. I heard those words before when he uttered the words, "I can't breathe." When I'm from New York City, so I heard those words in Staten Island. They uttered those same words. I can't breathe. And so the concept of breath takes on new life and meaning. As you go through this work, understand that it's going to be easy. Remember to breathe intentionally. And I hope that it takes on new meaning for you. And so use every breath that you take to confront this problem head on. And we'll see what awaits us in the future, because the past is painful, as I've been told. The present is precarious, as I've been told. The future is free, as I've been told. I may add a caveat to that, because it's not free. There's a price to pay. Some of us are paying a daily price, a daily tax. The future may not be free, but it can look much better than the present if we're willing to do things differently. I appreciate your time, your presence here, and I hope that you enjoy the remainder of this conference with open eyes, open hearts, and you take back what you learn, and that it doesn't become information just for information's sake, but that you apply, that you try, and when you fail, you try better. And when you fail again, you try better than the last time. And we continue to try until we find some solutions that work. Thank you for your time. That's slow because I have a lot of feelings. This is being recorded, so I have to be careful what I say. Georgetown has taken some efforts prioritizing that. So for those who don't know, is anyone familiar with the 272? Okay, there are some hands up. All right. So in addition to the naming efforts that Georgetown has undertaken, they have, and I know this is controversial in its own right, but they're partnering with some banks, Citibank, one of them, to create dedicated funding for those descendants. They are having real and intentional conversations, and while it may not feel real and intentional for everyone, I do think they are making the necessary efforts of approaching it. I am going to be mindful in what I say about how they are doing it, but I do think that they're taking steps in the right direction. That's as much as I'm going to critically say right now. Your second question.
Given the disparity that exists across the country, has OJJC ever thought about conditioning funding to a state based on the document that is to reduce the disparities? I think that is the only thing that's going to really move the needle.
I am more than okay with it. You are okay with it.
Thank you for raising that. Actually, that is what the federal statute requires. So there are provisions in the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Act that condition the receipt of the funds on meeting the 4 core requirements, one of which is about reducing racial and ethnic disparities. From my standpoint, what we're doing at OJJP is ensuring that the data collection is robust, and we're providing additional training and technical assistance across the country on that. We're also not just limiting our to reduce racial and ethnic disparities to the Title II program. We're actually looking at all of our programs across OJJDP because our resources are about $500 million. So what I want to see OJJDP do is look at what we're doing on the Title II program and make that as robust as possible, and then look across our programs. We're also investing in research with the National Institute of Justice to look at what are the effective practices for reducing racial and ethnic disparities. And these are things that the bill has told us. So as part of our work, racial equity and fairness is a central component of everything that we're doing, and that is something I'm not losing to see. So we're looking at every opportunity to do that, and I know we need to do things, so thank you for visiting.
For the answer. And may I add to that, Massachusetts was also a recipient of a 2016, 2017, and 2018 OJJDP grant on specifically addressing and reducing racial and ethnic disparities. And so within that body of work, because I was the coordinator of that work, we created it's racial and ethnic disparities, but we have since evolved the terminology there too, and indirectly it's anti-racism. Like we are confronting the problem head on, created a family advisory council that really leveraged the voices of family members that were, closest to the harm and closest to the pain, changing definitions about family integration and what that concept of community means. We created dedicated, structured conversations that leadership could have across the organization. So prior to 2016, 2017, where I was based in Massachusetts Department of Youth Services, structured conversations didn't happen. And then we made it somewhat mandatory during that time for leadership to be a part of that conversation. So race and racial and ethnic disparities were not just a bullet point part of conversations, they became a mandatory structured conversation every month where organizational leadership from the commissioner on down for 2 hours every month would have to talk about this. We changed our data collection practices, we changed our visitation practices, and I know we were one of 5 or 6 state recipients of that. And so there are some targeted efforts happening, and surely we can continue to advance that, but I can speak directly to what OJJDP has done for the efforts in Massachusetts. So there are truly opportunities to continue to advance the work and really using effective evidence-based practices, but where we've gone a little beyond is sometimes the evidence-based practices don't include the cohort of people who are most impacted. So we've shifted that to community-oriented practices, where the communities that we've identified who have really good solutions, but they're not documented as evidence-based approaches, how can we engage their voices and their solutions in addressing community-based issues, primarily around community development framework, which is comprising of 4 components. We look at the historical impact of racial and ethnic disparities on that specific community. We look at the geographical isolation, the cultural challenges, and then we bring in the context, right? There's the context of their experiences from community to community. So there are some very intentional things happening that, if possible, I'd love to connect with you and share some of the things that we're doing. I have one more, and I think that would be time, right? Okay, I just want to be mindful.
I just wanted to thank you and acknowledge that the way you framed the racial discussion is really important to me, because I think there are a lot of people who decide, well, they're just crying again because they can cry, or they're whining because all they do is whine, or they want something different. All we want is to be treated with respect, with dignity. There are so many examples of exclusion, and it's so easy to include people. I'll give that to you next session, but again, I just want to say thank you for the way you framed everything.
I appreciate you all. I know we have to be mindful to get you to your breakout sessions. So thank you, and continue to enjoy and really appreciate the experience. Thank you.